Hey guys, we're just wrapping up an LS3 and a 4L70 swap into this square body, and we ran into a little issue and the resolution wasn't publicized and it was a little bit hard to find the information, so I thought you guys would appreciate it if I passed on what the problem was and how I fixed it. So the products that we're using here and I'm going to talk about are stuff that you guys are going to use or are already using, and that's compatibility with the Holley Terminator X ECU or X Max ECU and the decoded digital BIM module. And so I'm sure you guys use decoded digital gauges just like we do, and the way that we gather the information to be displayed on the gauges is through the BIM module, and it's the Holley BIM module. I'm going to wipe this lens off. And the way that works is it pulls information from the CAN network. So we had the decoded digital BIM box hooked up to the network, and I had everything keyed on, ready to go, and I was doing my initial firmware update. So when you first initially hook up your USB cable to the CAN plug here, you'll probably have to do a firmware update. And when I was doing that firmware update, the ECU bricked, which means it completely locked up. All the lights on it went dead. You can't do anything with it. So you have two ways to fix that. One way is to pull the ECU and ship it back to Holley. They can put it on the workbench and they can unbrick it or restore the ECU and send it back to you. It's probably a 3-week wait time from what I understand. The other way is that we used the Holley 3.5-inch touchscreen that comes with a lot of these that you can buy. You need to unplug everything from the network and only plug in the 3.5-inch touchscreen to the network. You guys can Google the procedure. There's a bunch of YouTube videos on how to unbrick your Terminator ECU, so you can find out step by step how to do that. But I will tell you this, that when you're buying the BIM module, or if you guys have that BIM module and you've had it on the shelf for a while, when you wire that up, hold down the button and key on, and it'll tell you what version of software you have loaded on the BIM module. The current version is 2.4, and that's what we have. And so you need the newer version of software for the BIM module to be able to even pull data off of the network. So we did have to send the last 2 BIM modules back to have them reflashed because they were a year old from sitting on the shelves before we ever got to them. So heads up there, make sure that your Holley BIM module has the latest software on it. At least I think it's 2.3 or newer, and then it will work and we will be compatible with the Terminator. But anytime that you are tuning with the USB cable connected to this, or you're loading firmware or anything, you need to make sure that everything else is disconnected from the network, or you will possibly brick your ECU. So anyways, that was something I had to dig a little bit for and had to kind of work for. So I figured I would shoot this video to kind of give you guys a heads up and show you what to do or not to do, and if you do it, how to fix it. So anyways, shoot me a message if you need help with it. Thanks. Hey, good morning. I'm going to shoot a video real quick. We have the motor. I went to Texas and got this from Don, and it is gorgeous. I mean, better than photos, man. I love it. We've got, we're just waiting for me to put the motor and tranny in right now. And then I'll just finish any little thing I got to do. And like one of those things is, you know, I got to put I got to mock up all the stuff in the doors to make sure there's no like fitment issue with the, you know, wing windows or, you know, any of that stuff. But the dash is all in. You know, I think you've seen this. The ECU's mounted, columns in it. We've mocked up everything. The electronic throttle's mounted. You know, brake back master and booster, the AC bulkhead. I got to weld the mounts on the radiator, but I wanted to get the motor in first and make sure we got room for everything. Both inner fenders are in and fit awesome. Wiper motor, all the wiper linkage is in it and mocked up and works. Column looks cool. Vintage air controls, we mocked up a radio. Just making sure that everything fits like it's supposed to. We fit the wiper switch that we got from DSC. New pedal pads, and then that's like the more modern Corvette electronic pedal, but it looks perfect, matches the old time brake pedal. And then all the bed's done. I don't know if I've showed you this, but you know, since we have a bed fill for the fuel now, you know, we shaved the door. We've shaved all the stake posts. Even in the bed floor, there's usually like these humps, you know, where the filler pipe would go down through the floor and the floor was raised. And it had it on both sides because some of these had saddle tanks on both sides. So we smoothed the floor out there so nobody can ever tell that, you know, it ever had any fuel fill in it. Tailgate's on, works great. Rear bumper's on, looks awesome. I'm really pleased, to be honest with you, with the fit and finish of all the bed stuff. This is just a front bumper waiting to go on. And then these are the brand new wing windows that we got from LMC. Yes, please let me know, but so far we're really happy. I cannot wait to see the motor and trans sitting in it. Right now, I'm coming up with a game plan for what we want to put together first. Putting our eyes on it, and then putting our eyes on all of our parts, and then we're going to start staging them and decide what we want to do first. Hey everybody, and welcome back. Today we're working on Tim Tyler's 1984 C10. You guys have seen this around here for probably the last 2 full years. We're finally getting it running. Ed Simpf, one of our good friends, is a really good Motec calibrator, and this one has Holley EFI, which is a little simpler, but he's been able to remote in today and log into the computer and kind of help me do the initial fire up. We're going to heat cycle the motor a couple times and try to get all the systems checked out and make sure everything's good, and then hopefully next week he'll come up and we can go to the dyno and see what kind of power this makes. Now, if you guys follow us on Instagram, you'll remember back when we first bought this motor, Don Hardy built this engine, and he dynoed this engine at Panhandle Performance down in Texas. So I think the specific numbers were like 960 something horsepower at the crank. So even if we can like pulley down and like get this thing to like a safe 700, 750 wheel, that's a ton of power in this truck. So just to recap, it is a 416 cubic inch with a 2.9 liter Whipple blower, and then it's got a built 4L80 and a triple disc billet converter, 9-inch on a No Limit ProTech chassis. And anyways, that's about it. So hang out with us a little bit. We're just gonna work on topping off the coolant, making sure the trans is full of fluid, making sure the trans cooler fan cycle, make sure everything's working. And then we're gonna get maybe some revs and stuff like that today so that we can start like driving it around and then eventually go to the dyno. So anyways, check it out.
I haven't checked any of them yet, but yeah, there's been like 30 people.
That's awesome. I think so too, man.
I think so too. Vicky hates it.
Hey guys, I wanted to show you a couple cool things. With a Holley EFI or with any kind of like standalone, there's so many neat features that you can turn on. Like for instance, we were checking the intercooler pump, and the way I've got that IC pump working is that when the coolant temperature gets above 150 degrees and when the engine is running, so I put above 400 RPM, it'll activate the power to the pump. So only until the engine warms up and the engine is running will allow the IC pump to come on. And some of the other ones that I've kind of sit here and mess with too are like secondary fuel pump, like when the engine is running and when boost gets above 0.1 PSI, and it'll deactivate secondary pump when we get out of boost. Same with like the power to the brushless fan sensor. So like the radiator fans, won't work unless the engine is running. So kind of cool. So you could sit here with the key on and all this stuff isn't gonna run. So I don't know, if you guys are into this stuff, it's cool to mess with and kind of get things dialed in to where they work like you think they should. So anyways, just kind of want to talk about that. Same with the trans cooler, like trans cooler fans will only activate above 185 degrees and when the engine's running. So pretty cool. And we had to put a thermistor unit. So we've got a trans temp sensor in the hot line coming out of the transmission. So when hot fluid gets to the cooler, it goes past that sensor and it can monitor transmission temperature. And then we can also enable warnings or something. Like you could always set it to where it can flash like an LED, or we could actually have a ground output to like turn the check engine light on. So if trans temp gets too high, intake air temp gets too high, like we could have a warning output to turn the check engine light on, which is pretty cool. Yeah, nerd stuff.